So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 3 tips to thrive as a solo home buyer. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Zoe. I'm a real estate consultant and I've helped 70 over families expand their portfolio. And my mission is to guide solo home buyers just like myself to expand their wealth through real estate investing. Now, the first tip is this. Think of your property as a means to the end. That means it is not something that you just want to buy, live in, and that's it. Think of it in a long-term goal because essentially as a solo home buyer, our income, we are using our single name, the risk is higher. And especially if we are going to be on this journey alone, we want to make sure that our income allows us to afford a home that will give us capital appreciation so that it leads us to when we retire, there are funds, there are options for us. What you want is option, especially as a single person. We want to make sure that when we want to retire, take a step back, we have sufficient funds to care for ourselves, to make sure that our health care, our basic needs are taken care of. Right. So you think of this property as a stepping stone towards that. And this property may not be the first property that you own, especially if you are buying your first property, it is a stepping stone to something bigger. And then a few years down the road, after SSD clears, you can then again pivot into something bigger so that you grow your retirement wealth up to a certain level. So that by the time you're 55 or 65, when you want to take it slow, you have options to sell that place and then fully pay up a home, the remaining used for travel, the other half used for dividend play so that you have passive income. Right? Then with that long-term view in mind, then you know that your first property today is going to be very important. You want to make sure that whatever you buy is easy to sell and gives you capital appreciation. Tip number 2 is to make sure you look at your finances and the affordability. So what you can do is, especially as a solo home buyer, first property purchase, get an IPA done, which is an in-principle approval of how much loan you can borrow. So that will tell you how much loan you can get. Doesn't mean that you need to max out the loan, but based on that loan, roughly, you know what is the monthly installment, okay? And that monthly installment, then you can ask yourself, what kind of monthly installment you are comfortable with, and then you work backwards to how much loan you want to take. Based on the loan that you want to take, add it on to your CPF that you currently have in your OA, plus any cash or bonuses that you wish to invest in. In totality, these 3 added together should give you an idea of the property prices that you can look at. Now, many times I see a lot of buyers who have not done this yet. They just roughly have an idea of their loan, roughly have the idea of a CPF, and then they just, go and look at the homes and they realize that perhaps they just can't afford that home because the monthly installment is just not something that they can cope with, and then they become disappointed. So first, make sure that your numbers, your loan amount is clear before you start to shortlist projects and units. Now, tip number 3 is to view or shortlist projects and units with a checklist. Now, why a checklist? Because most of the times we are overwhelmed by so much information that we are either in a rush to make a decision, we are so clouded, so puzzled that without a decision, it just makes us very anxious, very uncertain. So I've been reading this book by Charlie Munger called The Poor Charlie's Almanac. And in it, he shares how he uses a checklist to make sure he doesn't fall into psychological tendencies. Now, psychological tendencies are just tendencies that we tend to fall into when we're stressed, we're puzzled. Example, fear of missing out, because of the FOMO effect, you might end up buying something that you might regret later. Number 2, it could be a mere association tendency, which is perhaps this particular developer is well known and doesn't mean that any project that the developer develops is a good project. Or perhaps you have a friend who bought a condo in that area, has been performing, doesn't mean that project that's right next to his or hers will also perform as well. Also, there are things like inconsistent avoidance tendency, meaning to say that we're reluctant to change our mind. We've read this information, we really believe in it, and doesn't mean that it is the right decision because we are just reluctant to change our mind about it. So I have a checklist. I mean, like professionals like surgeons and pilots, they run through rigorous checklists before they do an operation or fly a plane so that they remain objective and make sure that every blind spot can be covered. Because on that day itself, when stress hits the road, sometimes you might make the wrong decision. So the checklist is quite simple. The first thing I'll look at is price. I will ask myself, am I overpaying? I'll look at the past transaction. I'll look at what the neighbors have sold for. I'll look at bank value. I will also compare it with the new launches if I'm buying a resale. And if I'm buying a new launch, I'll then compare it with a resale if the price is too close. Number two, I'll look at layout. Is my layout going to be easy to sell in future? Am I going to be buying a two-bedder or a three-bedder? If I look at a three-bedder, am I looking at three-bed compact, a three-bed premium? What is the difference? Usually a three-bed premium comes with a WC and a utility. How does that then help me in my exit plan? Are there irregular shapes? Are there more balconies? Are there like one balcony, two balconies? Are there certain parts of the home that I cannot really optimize? Because that would then tell me what my future buyer will tell me when I'll try to sell. So I essentially want to make sure that a layout that I purchase is easy to sell, allows me to reach as wide an audience as possible, especially family profiles. So the third thing I want to look at is the project trends. Are the project inching upwards? I want to look for trends that shows momentum for upward growth, because it shows a project with a lot of confident, happy sellers or homeowners who are happy to sell. They know that they have previous transaction has already hit a certain benchmark. They can now challenge a higher benchmark. So I want to avoid flatliners, which shows me that there's no growth in the project, or setliners, the momentum of buyer sale is very high. The fourth thing I'll look at is number of units. Typically, I'll look at projects with more than 300 units at least, if possible, because the more units there are, the more transactions there will be in the recent times, and bank will look at this transaction to value my property. So if the transactions has been healthy, there's a lot of transactions, number one, I don't need to worry about one fire sale that will tank the whole value. Number two, I know that all this will become like a benchmark for me to set my asking price. Then the sixth thing I'll look at is whether is it close to an MRT. Nowadays, it's quite hard to be not near MRT. So if you find a project that is not near MRT, it will lose out when you want to sell in future, because future buyers will compare you with other units that's closer to MRT. Number seven, I want to look at whether is it within 1 km to primary schools. Of course, the best is near good primary schools, but if not, more than 2 or 3 schools would be best, so that I can attract parents to be my future buyers, because usually family profiles, they are more willing to stretch their dollar to reach my price expectation. And of course, lastly, I'll look at any facing that I cannot control of. I want to try to eliminate any negatives as much as possible. So if you're wondering how the real estate market is going to trend in time to come, or whether the Singapore real estate market is stable, take a look at this video next.